For the next 1 hour, let's look at something together, something very serious. And we need to set aside all the things. Put away your opinions, your views. Just listen. Listen to what is being said, and also listen to yourself. For most of us, listening is a rather demanding task. To listen means there's no translation. You don't translate. You don't translate what you hear through your opinions, your preference, your pleasure. Then you can't listen at all. To listen means full attention. Don't agree or disagree with the speaker, because it is rather verbal and has no meaning. Observe yourself to make sense of what is being said. Or you can look at yourself to see whether it is right or not, it is so or not. Our life is full of trouble, issues on a daily basis, endless. That's our most people's life. A lot of energy has been spent on dealing with these issues. But they are never finished. Why? Why are these issues always there in different forms? To answer that question, you must observe yourself completely, tremendously, diligently, and seriously. Our life is very divided, isn't it? Because most people's life are based on thoughts. Thoughts are at every corner of our living. When one is rather serious about this, one will find most people are worshipping thoughts. We think thinking thoughts is very important. But thoughts are infinitely divisive. Everybody has their own unique thoughts. And one thought is rarely compatible with the other. So our life, which is surrounded by thoughts, is divided by thoughts. And this society, which is based on thoughts, is full of divisions. And this utter individualism is a result of this endless and infinite division, isn't it? We have become utterly individual, separated, divided by opinions, by views, by ideology, by philosophy, by religion, by politics. Where there is division, there is conflict. It's a fact. Not only the conflicts between people, also within ourselves. The mind is holding too many thoughts, full of conflict, contradiction. And we are utterly confused. Isn't it our issues the result of those divisions? Because the conflict, the contradiction. And to deal with these issues, one has to look at this division thoroughly. Is that possible to empty all those divisions? Else, this conflict, this struggle is always there. And it is affecting your life in every corner. When the mind is holding onto thoughts, it must encounter conflicts. And what is the point of holding onto thoughts? One of the most common symptom is that we are holding onto the past. To give us a sense of who we are, right? Your past education, your career, your life experience give you a sense of who you are. But what is the past? You are now here. What does the past mean to you? Isn't it some memory. And also the thoughts as a response to that memory. And you are holding onto that thoughts, which means that the thoughts are replayed all the time on your mind. And you allow that to happen. Because that replaying gives you a sense of existence. Oh, I'm an engineering. Oh, I'm a professor. So the mind is always functioning in the past. And when the mind listens, the mind is translating what it hears through the past, the knowledge it has accumulated, the experience it has collected, and translate what it hears through that filter. So we can't meet this moment because this past as a filter, as a loop, keeps blocking us from looking at this moment or deal with the issues at this moment. And our past become so important. Our identity, our name, our experience become so dominant. Without listening, without looking, without observing, what we are doing is translating, which is the enhancement of the past. And that's why we become more and more egocentric, more and more self-concerned. And at the same time, we are becoming more and more neurotic. Any small disturbance becomes an issue because we are always holding onto that thoughts which bring a sense of me. And the me is open to all hurts, isn't it? As long as you have this sense of me, it can register all kinds of issues. And most of us don't want to give up the past because the past also gives us the pleasure, right? The proudness, the achievement, the sense of privilege, and all the rest of it. But thoughts are always divisive. So the past, as a thought, must be divisive, therefore must be full of conflicts. And the image about yourself, the me, therefore, is full of conflicts. And me is full of hurt. So back to this question. thoughts as knowledge have a place, right? You study, you work. But psychologically, thoughts creates the past, creates the me. Does it have a place at all, psychologically? When the mind is trapped in thoughts, the mind must be trapped in divisions. Can you observe that in yourself? As we said at the beginning of the session, this society, actually every society, is based on thoughts. Organized thoughts means patterns. And we are living in any society. The life is conditioned to the thoughts, to the mental construct of the society. One of the product of this society is choice. We have numerous choices, options in our life. What is the choice? Why does the mind make choices? Is choice freedom? Or the choice has nothing to do with freedom? When we make a choice, what takes place on the mind? What pushes you to make a choice? Isn't it the desire? And when the mind is making choices, the mind can feel a sense of so-called freedom. It sounds free, but is that really so? When you are making choice, what are your actual feeling? Isn't it the mind is confused? And at many moments, it has trouble to make a clear choice. When the mind is making choice, the mind is exerting the will, isn't it? I want this. I want that. And the mind is evaluating. It's comparing. It's judging. So when the mind is making choice, it involves many movements of thoughts. So does that process really give you a feeling of freedom? Or The choice is a result of the division. Only trap the mind into this endless movement of thoughts. We don't condemn choice, but we must look at it. And then most of us, when we are faced with the choice, we don't know how to choose. We are confused. So making choice implies this exertion of the will. And what is the will? We have this concept which is called free will. What is free will? Is will free or not? What is the essence of will? Isn't it desire? Will is desire. And so to understand will, we have to understand what is desire. Suppose one goes to a shop, a clothes shop, and one finds a very beautiful clothes. One touches it, feels it, when there's immediate sensation. The texture of the clothes, the beautiful color and design, bring about this sensation. Then thought comes along, says, I want to have it. So desire comes. The mind has an image about that clothes and want to have it, to make that image into reality by buying the clothes. So the essence of desire is a thought to achieve an image by changing this moment. In other words, the mind is seeking an image and want to achieve it to get a fulfillment, satisfaction. And look at our life. The life is surrounded by all kinds of desires, all kinds of choices. When you make a choice, the mind exerts the will, and it is the movement of the desire. So you see, our life keeps trapped in those thought processes because the will the desire. And this free will, so-called free will, is similar to the choice that bring a sense of freedom, isn't it? But the question is, when we are in thoughts, are we really free or not? Thoughts are divisive. Thoughts breed conflicts. Thoughts bring fear. And our life, especially this modern life, is built upon thoughts. We keep struggling with all kinds of issues, fear, problems. At the same time, we are still chasing our dreams, the desires, the fulfillment. The mind is always in thoughts. But we are not happy. We have all kinds of issues. So the question comes back. Can the thoughts bring freedom? Or is freedom something totally beyond those thoughts? You know, most people are worshipping thoughts. They think thoughts are so important in your life. That's why the question whether thoughts bring freedom becomes something very formidable. And if most of us keeps accumulating more thoughts, more knowledge to expand the self, keeps deriving pleasure, either intellectual pleasure or any experiential pleasure, to constantly demand for satisfaction, gratification, and pleasure. But thoughts are always divisive, always divided, and the thoughts must bring conflict. When one is at all serious about this whole process of the thinking. So is that possible to only use thoughts in the right place without being dominated or trapped by thoughts? As we said, thoughts as knowledge for your work, for your study, has a place. But psychologically, this sense of me, the self, is the result of the past, which is also thoughts, cannot be emptied. Which means that, can you use thoughts without me? What is the me? The me is the thinker, isn't it? Most of us are thinking as a thinker. The thinker is the past, right? All the accumulated knowledge about you. And from that center, you think. And always a division between the thinker and the thoughts. So can one think without this thinker? As we said, the thinker is the past, is the me. And when the thinking is always filtered through the thinker, or anything is being translated by the thinker is being re-enhanced. The me is always re-enhanced. Therefore, the thinker keeps creating issues, problems. Is that possible to think without the thinker? And only then thoughts can stay in the right place. But most of us prefer thinking as a thinker. Right? When you are working in the academia, people are doing a lot of knowledge, and they identify themselves with the knowledge. Only re-enhance the me, the self, the big ego. We are becoming more and more arrogant. At the same time, the ego is suffering a lot because this conflict, the division is always there. To think without this thinker requires awareness. You must be aware whether there's a thinker or not when you are thinking. Can you do that? When you are thinking, just be aware whether there's a thinker or not. Just be aware that. So there's only thoughts without any identification, without this sense of me. Which means that life is humble. The mind is looking, is learning, is thinking, but without this center, this filter, which is called me, the thinker, the observer. And only in that way of thinking, where there's no me at all, it can be objective. Just like when one is studying something, learn something, like in the lab, one must let go of the self, look carefully, observe totally, without that me. Only then it is possible to look at things as they are. Else, for example, a researcher always want to get a paper to be published, always want to get a positive result. Then he can't really study or observe, because that seeking, that tendency with the sense of me, distort the observation, distort the result. And this happens very often in our life, in all kinds of ways. When the me is there, me have this interest, the mind is always biased. As you may also go through in your life, people always have this self-interest. Therefore, they are always biased, always for their own benefit. And the mind can't be objective. And therefore, there is always conflict. To understand oneself completely is to see clearly that when the me is not here, we are nothing. See it is a fact, not as an idea. It's the actual understanding of the self. And you must apply it to your life to see what happens when this sense of me is totally absent. But this society is very challenging to each one of us because it demands your conformity, demands competition. Imitation. So all those keeps re-enhancing the sense of me. Like in your environment, when there's no me, it is not possible to compete. But when people are competing, it is all because the me. Through the competition, we are pressured, stressed with all the numerous subtle issues. And when we compete, actually we can't really learn well, right? The competition bring about this sense of fear. Fear of lagging behind. Fear of not catching up. So this fear is the activities of me. And in that competition, in that sense of me, we can't really learn or observe or study or look. And a lot of energy is wasted by the me. So come back to this very basic but also very fundamental question. Can one think without being the thinker? And this whole world is full of thinkers. And can you not conform to that? Can you stand alone? Can you live a life without being the thinker? There's only thinking. There are only thoughts, but there's no thinker whatsoever. When you really do that, when you really apply it to your life, please see, please find out where are your issues. So this self-inquiry is not some thought processes. What the speaker can say is very limited. And what is more important is that whether you can apply it to your life, live with it, to really experience what it's like when the me is totally absent. The actual change is beyond your imagination. And you can only know that when you really experience it, when you really perceive it, when you experience it. And also experience it without being the experiencer. But the actual challenge for most of us is to let go. The mind is always holding on to the past, the me, which brings a sense of fulfillment, importance, existence. The mind does not want to let go of it. You see, life is full of attachment. We are always attached to something. And that very attachment is the essence of me. Without attachment, there's no me at all. We are either attached to an idea, a philosophy, or some specific knowledge, or the achievement, or the past, or tradition, or a country. We are always being attached to something for a sense of security or stability. At the same time, the whole mind, the neuron system, is always resisting to any attachment. And that's why consciously we are attached to something for security. But beneath that, fundamentally, the neurons are resisting to that pattern, to that attachment. Therefore, there are always issues, struggle. Because in thoughts we think attachment gives us security, stability. But in actuality, the mind is always resisting to that. Then this comes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the session. The mind is always into something easy or convenient. So is the attachment. But the whole neuron system is resistant to it. And one need to observe it to find out what is actually taking place. And then one must go beyond these superficialities of being easy or convenient. And to observe, one must let go of that. You see, it is one process. The very observing your attachment is letting go of the attachment. The very observing is to ending the me. The very observing the patterns is to end the patterns. When you are really deeply aware of the patterns, you are free of it. When you are deeply aware of the me ends. So this life, for most of us, has become so complicated, so fragmented, so divided, so contradicted, demands full awareness. Perceive at each moment. Perceive the pattern, perceive the me, perceive the desire. That very perception ends the issue. So there's no control, there's no suppression, there's only full awareness without any choice. That is very important. Choiceless awareness. You can't say, I can be aware of this, but that part, it gives me pleasure. I don't need to be aware of that. Then that's not awareness at all. Choiceless awareness means that can the mind be aware all the time? Be aware of your thought, what you said, what you do. And that awareness is the key. And also that awareness implies that letting go. And that's the very fundamental and also basic challenge, letting go. It is easy to hold on to something, but it is not to let it go. So to let go is to die to this moment. To really let go of everything psychologically. So the mind stays empty. Being empty is not being ignorant. Being ignorant means that there's no awareness. Being fully aware is the human intelligence. And this comes through this meditation. The true meditation, in contrast to so-called practice or system or methods, is fully aware at each moment. In that full awareness, seeing that we are nothing at each moment. This fact. So live with that fact. When the mind is aware that it feels it is something, then the mind must surely act, let go. Because that feeling of something is already implies that the me is back. So can one do that? Can one live with that fact? Very simple fact, but it requires your mind to be sharp all the time. To see that, yeah, I'm nothing at this moment. Not as an idea, but it's a fact. That very thing is the clarity. And also the freedom. Because when there's no me at all, the thinking can't lead to conflict. You must test it out for yourself. And when the me is totally absent, life becomes simple. You know what you should do. You know what is right. And you surely act. And such a life has no choice. Because the right thing is not an option, isn't it? You can't say, I choose to do the right thing. That's ridiculous. The very right thing is not an option. When you say it is right, you will do it. And such a living, where the me is totally absent, is authentic. There's no regret. The action is whole, clear, total, immovable. But all those now is mere the statement made by the speaker. You must test out for yourself. To really see whether it is true or not.